Hi there. I've got a written journal for you, but I just wanted to mention something that I've noticed about how things are recently. Somehow they're going easier. Now, this is subtle, but I'm just finding myself more in tune. I'm noticing, for instance, when I see a little thing here and a little thing there that either needs to be picked up or just some little thing that needs an adjustment, and I notice myself just charging ahead and not doing any of that, I'm more present to realize I'm not in my now. More aware of the interaction with my environment somehow, which is really handy because, I mean, after all, our environment is us. We are that. We are the manifestors, the creators of that which is around us. So, anyhow, I'm not sure what it is. It just seems a little easier to be a little neater. I don't need to know why. I can just revel in the fact that it is. Okay, this one is actually the one that was written before my recent upload. So that was the second one of 9/12. This is the first one of 9/12, the day 9 Serpent. And it's got some really neat links, not just Abraham, but a TED Talk that I found really impressive. So I hope you'll click over to the written journal to get those. Okay, now keeping in mind this was 9/12, so glad we made it through 9/11 without any more supposed terrorist attacks. Seems to be a date the Illuminati revere somehow. I'm sure a lot of prayers went up, and not just for those souls that crossed that day, but for all of us too. May we all soon be so awakened to all false flag attacks, no matter who supposedly initiated them. Then we won't stand for such repressive supposed security measures that amount to little more than excuses for excessive snooping and control. There, I got that out of my system. May we all hold the earth and her beautiful peoples close in prayer in our hearts. Let us not forget that one being does make a difference, whether we see it or not, just due to the way we're fractally connected. Our prayers and intentions do make a difference, my friends. I have to stop here just for a minute. It is so strange as I'm reading this, how it seems like I've already read it. You know, that deja vu thing. Okay. I wanted to come back and say more about time, or time-space, since they're different aspects of the same thing, inextricably connected. To consider them apart is like thinking of depth without width. The only way there can be karma is in the presence of linear time. Before I begin, I'll share my definition or understanding of what karma is. The law of cause and effect. I find it to be neutral, as it dishes up both the quote-unquote good and quote-unquote bad consequences of our actions. These actions can be mental, emotional, or physical. In the presence of linear time, all have their effects. A very important piece of this puzzle is that Earth and her beings are rising in frequency, which will eventuate in a move out of 3D and 4D for many. While we could wish that it would be so for all, yet we also respect free will. Some of us aren't at the place of readiness to leave the ups and downs of 3D behind, and that's fine. It's just where they are, and it's neither better nor worse than leaving 3D behind. Let us not think we are better just because we move into another dimension. That's not the case. I don't propose to know how it happens, this sorting out of the wheat from the chaff. Just because we, in this sector of the galaxy, are leaving 3D behind doesn't mean 3D will cease to exist. We're just changing channels. 94 to 109 FM, if you will, or from AM to FM, whatever. 3D will continue to exist. So 3D lifetimes have an ample field to continue. Perhaps some other planet similar to Earth will be chosen by many. I don't know. Meanwhile, back to us, for staying with the now here is ever and always our point of greatest power. It's when we get too far out into the externals that we can get lost. Now, sure, we may learn a lot, but how does it apply to us? Outside our point of power, we just don't know, not fully. Our actions, when we're spread out in time, whether pondering future or past, are less effective than they are when we're centered. Now, today we're doing something else, however. I hope I can carry it off. We are centering in heart first, then we are bringing before our heart-centered view this topic of karma. So we will be looking necessarily at time, even though it doesn't exist in the same way in heart. It is possible to stay centered and do this, but it takes ignoring the chatter of mind, and since it's a favorite mind topic, that may be a bit of a challenge for some. Just keep bringing attention back into heart. All dimensions are already present right where we are, now here. It is by the turn of the knob of our frequency dial that we experience them, much like a radio or TV or CB or anything else that operates on frequencies. For a while on our path, we chose to experience the world of karma and linear time. Well, for a rather long while, relatively speaking. And yet, graduation from that old view and that old way is upon us. Many of us already spend most of our time not limited to 3D, but well able to abide in joyous 5D awareness. Keep remembering, friends, it's not elsewhere. It's right here, along with all the other dimensions. When we tune into them, when we begin to resonate with them, we'll experience them as our everyday reality. The choice is our own. As we continue to rise in frequency, we'll find ourselves somewhat isolated from many others around us. They've made other choices, so their reality won't be what we're experiencing. We make a mistake to begin with when we think that all other people experience the same reality that we do. And then it's not the case, but you have to believe it before you can see it. The police among us will be well aware of this if they've taken accident reports. They may get vastly different stories about the very same event from people quite convinced that theirs is the true reality. Well, be in heart. Can we step away from this? Can we rise in perspective and get some distance from it so that when we look back on it, our vision is clearer? Now, surely we can. Just enter heart or go deeper into that. What some forget is that mind and time are inextricably linked. One relies on the other here in 3D. I'm not saying that there isn't a higher mind, just that the left brain we've all been taught to inhabit is part and parcel of time-space. And time-space is the only possible locus where karma makes sense as the law of cause and effect. Oh, and I'm going to add another link for you. It's an experiment, scientific experiment, where the effect came before they'd launched the cause. It's most interesting. Nor am I saying that the law of cause and effect is invalid. Not at all. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. When in 3D, one can see the action of cause and effect, and it's very real. Otherwise, we'll quickly, wait a minute. In the midst of all of this, though, let's be sure to stick close to heart, to occupy there. Otherwise, we'll quickly slip over into mind's view of things, which is more narrow than that of heart, that's all. It's got a more narrow frequency range. So, let us keep presence in the now here as we look at these things and do our best to ignore the offerings of left brain thought. And I know that's a challenge, well, not for everyone, but as we're in a subject on which mind has lots of thoughts and opinions, and those are fine, but let's set them aside just for now, knowing that they'll be there for us to look at again later. To stay in heart all the way for this journal may take several viewings, since it's tricky that way. Mind really wants to be heard. We've been rather philosophical here thus far, so let's get back strictly into self and now here, in heart. Let's bring the discussion home to that. So, how does this apply to the self? Even though we all occupy our own personal reality, the edges of those realities certainly merge. So we have much in common, but not all. So if you don't accept responsibility for your life, for being the creator of that, then this discussion may be wrought with difficulties for you. Just a heads up. Let's all be self-aware. Where most of us are is in the midst of the great shift. That move of Earth and her beings into higher frequency, eventually higher dimensions or densities. So we stand in a way with 1 foot there, 1 foot here. Well, that is no problem, since we're all quite multidimensional. Always have been, just haven't been used to consciously exercising that. So to the Divine One we are, this is no big challenge. It's more a matter of expanding our perspective, our range of perception beyond that of 3D. At a certain point in this move to higher dimensions, we step from creating via karma, or cause and effect, to creation via resonance, magnetizing what we are in vibration. This has been popularized as the law of attraction, which can be seen as just another way to say creation by resonance. I'll step out here a second and say we've always been creating by our resonance as well, but in 3D we weren't aware of it. And so we're stepping into that awareness, and that makes sense. We're stepping up into higher consciousness, and so our awareness increases. When we lay the body down in death or in a near-death experience, we experience simultaneous time. We can live a whole lifetime in a flash, and yet going into great detail and depth with it, experiencing every little thing completely. To the 3D mind, it wouldn't make sense, but we have also transcended the limitations of that. We may get the life review of this incarnation, and some even get to perceive all of their incarnations, all of those life reviews, if you will. Now, clearly from this quote-unquote other side perspective, time is a very different thing. It's more like the pages in a book or the tracks on a CD. They all exist at the same time, but you can choose to open the book or to play the CD at any spot, any page. They're all available to you always. As the Hermann Hesse's Buddha, we can sit on the bank of the river watching the flow, yet knowing that at one and the same time, this same river is also at its origin and at its end, flowing into the ocean or the bay. All time is just now, don't you see? You do, but if you're having problems with that, I suggest it's due to the interference of mind and thought. And those can be set aside for a few moments to entertain a broader perspective, if you like. My point is that this perspective is also available to one and all. We don't tend to realize how much what we perceive is a matter of choice and the exercise of free will. Most are under the delusion that everyone experiences the same reality that they do. If that were the case, there would be no arguments, no disagreements, for all would understand from the same perspective and agree. If that were the case, there would be no divorce, no war, and perhaps no separate religious perspectives on life. Clearly, we experience different realities. Perhaps you can see how heavily this rests on your personal beliefs and those of everyone else. We can choose together to believe whatever reality we like, and we do to a great extent. Thus, we have a common understanding around which side of the road to drive on and what the lines down the center represent. This is part of our joint or common reality, the mass agreements to which all signed on. What many don't yet realize is that just under the edges of our realities, what many don't yet realize is that it is just the edges of our realities that we hold in common. The heart and the soul of them are all unique. There is literally no one, no being in all of cosmos who has walked precisely your path, who has had precisely your embodiments and experiences. No one else who could be you or even like you in that sense. Now, come on, do we not find it challenging to discover others who can understand us to any truly deep level? The higher our frequency grows, the fewer with whom we are comfortably able to merge and retain that coherent space. Surely by this, it is clear that our realities are both personal and different, yet based on our belief in this one shared reality concept, we don't tend to notice how unique we are, and others are. Remember, my friends, that you are source, you are divine. In asking you to straddle the dimensions, the frequencies this way, I do not truly challenge you. It is well within your reach. Let us all shed more and more the concept that we are these mortal humans walking around, or that our set of beliefs is the right one. As we expand out into a more flexible perspective on things, let us both respect and acknowledge that our brethren see things in different ways, and that is perfectly fine, even wonderful. Let's grow into that. Just as you may choose to read one book or another, you also choose your views on things. Nothing is forced on you. If you think it is, then look to your beliefs and realize that you haven't yet taken all of your power back. Outer circumstances can't sway and affect you when you are totally in the now here in heart. Your wealth, riches, and contentment don't come from anywhere or anything out there. They originate within. You can be both independent in this way, yet also deeply compassionate and allowing everyone else to be who they are, to hold their own set of beliefs and live by them. You cease putting expectations on others, on anything outside the self. There is no more resistance to life. Now you're able to go with heart flow and let others do as they will. Your choice is to associate with them or not, and how deeply. You don't demand to be understood anymore. You're at peace. You know, we expect others to understand us, and it's kind of funny when we don't even understand the self. As we take our power back in this way, our experience of life shifts. Nothing seems the same anymore. At times during this shift, and often, we feel like the rug has been pulled out from under us. Letting go of the old beliefs doesn't always come easily or quickly, yet as we persistently stick with heart, the letting go, it just happens somehow, and not necessarily by any conscious exertion of will. An important step is when we let go of the need for things to make mind sense. And that one is huge. It means we are content with not knowing, with not understanding the why and wherefore of things, finding it enough just to know the what of them, accepting what is. Ultimately, it just is what it is, yet we all see it in different ways. Once we acknowledge that and allow others their own perception, we've claimed a large chunk of freedom that we're not used to having. At first it may seem scary as heck, as if everything is falling apart and the middle cannot hold. Yet after a time of just sticking with heart and now here things mellow out, we realize that, hey, it's really possible to live this way, even though we never in a million years would have thought of it. Well, so what? We allow. We are non-resistant. We try it on. Now, back to the karma thing that started this whole jaunt. How do we look at it now? Do we still feel limited to the 3D time perspective of past, present, future being the only way? No. We find less resistance to taking other views, to trying out other perspectives. And look at that science link to show you how even in science they've disconnected cause and effect in time. We all have at our disposal many, many body death experiences, many crossings over that we can call on if we like. Now, I'm not suggesting we use the mind to try to remember the details of any particular life, or death. Instead, by remaining heart-focused, we can get the sense of that, of some of those crossings, of some of those lives. So let us stick to heart and not let mind take over, for its vision is too limited for this. What I'm saying is that we have our own direct experiences of these other planes, these other lifetimes, the supposedly other side. We've all been there countless times. And just because mind doesn't currently remember these doesn't preclude us from accessing them in other ways. They are so much a part of us that we'll be surprised at how normal they feel to us. And that's why, even though your current body may not yet have crossed over, you have, and you can access that as long as you don't identify too much with the body or with the mind. As we all go stand on the other side in consciousness for a few moments, we can recall at least something of our perspective from there. And we can get good at this too by carefully working our way through our old beliefs, discarding those in the way of our current expansion. If and as that is our choice, we don't have to, of course. As we stand there, freshly bereft of the 3D body, what do we perceive? How does time seem to us now? What is our experience of that? We quickly note that as soon as we think of a certain incident, a certain time, we are transported into that. We perceive it again, fresh as the first time. The same happens when we think of another space, such as our parents' home, or where is our spouse, our old school, or whatever. There we are, instantaneously. In this way, from this perspective, we can see that all of time is just now. All of space is just here. And this is so very deep. I hope you can access it. We use intention as our vehicle to go when and where we will, finding it all equally available and at the speed of higher thought. Wow. Isn't this nice? Yet it's also very other dimensional in the sense that it somehow doesn't translate to 3D. If it did, there would be cars and other such conveyances taking you hither and yon, not the power of thought. I hope this has been sufficiently useful to help you draw on your own deeper knowledge and experience. It's right there where you are. No doubt mind has chimed in a time or two, but no doubt also you can choose to ignore that to get the purer experience of what is offered here by staying centered in heart. From our broader perspective then, with one foot on the other side and one foot in 3D, let's look again at karma, at cause and effect as the chimes chime in. I don't know about you, but at this point, I see it as a part of the dream. The dream I once thought was reality. I now realize we get to make choices, powerful choices of what to believe. It's more clear to me now how we use thought and belief to construct a personal reality, one for each embodiment, each lifetime. By choosing to keep one foot fairly well planted on that supposedly other side, I see too how those lives are not at all either as linear or as separate as I once believed them to be, back when I believed in linear time. I see how the gifts and talents of one lifetime blend into the others, how we draw on them in the now here when they are all happening, and how we can begin to do that more consciously. Yet to do so, of course, we must hold a useful set of beliefs, beliefs that enable that. So there is generally some belief gardening work that comes before we bring the big picture in that much clearer. Otherwise, it remains fuzzy and somehow out of reach, out of focus. You may want to try on just this one idea, that all time is simultaneous, to see how you can have fun with that. If all lifetimes are simultaneous, then of course we can access any of them that are relevant to our now here. Pull in any ability, talent, or aspect we desire. But this is only if and to the extent that we can adopt and believe in our chosen beliefs. Doubt will bite us in the behind every time, and doubt is based on fear. As we continue to claim and reclaim our divine nature, our source identity, these things get that much easier. But it's a transition we make from playing the powerless victim of circumstances and karma into realizing that we also exist above and beyond any such realm. In the end, it gets down to turning the frequency dial, my friend. I'm hoping there are enough of you, or even one, who feel froggy enough to jump into these seemingly new experiences. In truth, they are very old, for we are ancient beyond any concept of time. At least I am, though I can't speak for you. One thing I know is that I'm never alone. We are all one. That means we can even share each other's experiences. I recommend, if you want more immersion in this perspective, you check out Nancy Dannison, Nanci. Nancy Dannison on YouTube. She shares how, in her very extensive NDE, her spirit friends came to meet her as she crossed over. Her life review turned into a joint thing, with each one of them hopping into her shoes, if you will, to experience directly her experiences as her. It's a shift in perspective. It's available to you. Why and how does it work? All I know is that we are all one, and everything is just all now. And that one is Source. What Source has access to, so do we, being emanations of that. I am you, and you are me, in all reality and truth. But until you adopt such a belief, which goes along beautifully with the golden rule, you won't be viewing from this perspective. You'll likely have conflicting beliefs in the way, what I call belief weeds. If you spend some time weeding out old stale beliefs, your perspectives, your perception can't help but become clearer. And such things will be easier to reach and experience. Will seem second nature to you. More understanding will flow into your awareness once you release the resistant beliefs. we truly don't realize how we're going through life with one foot on the gas and two on the brakes. We don't see it as resistance to life, but it can be seen that way. We don't have to love every little thing that comes our way, that quote unquote happens to us, but it is well to simply accept its presence, to just give it the right to exist. So, I'm not saying to wrap arms of love around everything. That's another, even larger perspective than the one being offered here. What I'm saying here is to perhaps just begin to self-observe with one eye to noting all the places where you resist what is, where you wish things were some other way, where you wish you could get past this or that. I say that's being in too much of a hurry. As we narrow down our focus back to now here, we're in much better shape, back in our place of power to make what change we desire. Only now we know it has to be made inside in order to appear outside. Yet before we can make changes that stay in place, I suggest we've got to let go of resistance and greet things with a neutral acceptance instead. It doesn't mean that we have to like them. We don't. Yet, to fight against their right to exist, to be present in our life, is to tilt at windmills, a most useless, tail-chasing stance to take. And just because we accept that someone is acting this or that way, and that they have a complete right to do that, it doesn't mean we will choose to stay in vicinity to that. We retain the power of choice too. Choice is a very different thing when preceded by acceptance and not used as a tool of resistance. One can make precisely the same choice, yet have a far different outcome depending on whether the action originated from acceptance or resistance. We've all seen this in action, but often our current set of beliefs colors it in some other way. We interpret it differently. Well, that too is by choice. So my final call here is for each of us to continue to go about taking our power back from circumstances, from people, from groups of any kind. Let us find our way back to center, back to heart. Let us stubbornly persist in being present there, and in paying far less attention, read that as energy, to mind, ours or others, or to anything external at all. Let us finally reclaim the life we are living right now and right here. Let us finally recognize that we are writing the script with our thoughts and beliefs. And let us cease to resist what is. The joy that's available to us is truly amazing, but it's gained through the exercise of free will and being conscious of the choices we make. Coming home to only self, and now here in heart. Namaste.